Hello, we are Geeks Assembled, and today I am joined with Ethan here, and we are talking two seasons today because last year we didn't get a chance to talk about the first season of this TV series, so we're going to have a bit of a mashup today with season one and season two. This series we're talking about is created from the Dark Horse comics. The TV series is produced by Netflix, and it's a rather wonderful series. We are going to be talking the Umbrella Academy. Just a brief intro to this. It's set in present day. Well, first season. 43 women become pregnant in the world, even if they don't even know they're pregnant until they go into labor. And 7 of those children are adopted by this monocled mystery man, brought up in his home. And these kids have sort of got special powers and things like that. So that's the sort of gist of what this series is about. But we'll get into that as we go along. So, Ethan, where to start with the Umbrella Academy? I know you're fresh watching both seasons. I watched the first season last year, and I've watched the second season this year. So I've got my phone at hand in case just to remind my memory of season one. But so where shall we begin? I mean, I've done the intro there, just a sort of brief description of these 7 children. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the characters first. The children, well, they're adults now, aren't they? They've grown up.
Yeah, the adults.
So let me get the cast of characters up so I know what the. Here we go. Go on then. Over to
you. Well, I jumped into this show. Now, funny enough, being a geek and all that, I didn't know anything about this show. Well, I heard of it. I heard of this show, but I knew it was based on a comic, but I've actually never read the comic. So this was literally something quite unique for me to jump into something that I didn't know about. Whereas unlike, say, The Boys, I obviously knew the characters and stuff like that, and maybe certain things that could happen in that. But I didn't know anything about the Umbrella Academy. I've seen pictures, I've seen the books, and it had a very unique look to it, where some of the drawings, and you'll see some of the designs in this series, had a very 50s, like a weird twist, like a twisted, weird 50s, 60s look, like something you'd imagine from that time, like their designs and all that. And you see that in this, like with the commission's base of operations, which was brilliant. But yeah, and it's written by Gerard Way, who's the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. And being a fan of him and My Chemical Romance and their music, you could sort of see it in this a wee bit. But I was like, I never knew that. But I just jumped straight in without knowing anything. So, and this turned out to be probably my 3 favorite shows right now are The Umbrella Academy, The Boys, Stranger Things. All 3 do different things, deliver differently. But for me, this is the best show I've ever watched. It really is. I've never watched anything quite like this. But it has elements where we've seen certain things before, but I'll get to that later. Certain things we've seen in other things before, but we haven't seen for so long, but it combines it with other things. And you'd think it wouldn't work, but it does work. So it gives us something that's fresh and new, but we could see little things like that are quite nostalgic. Like it's got elements of Quantum Leap or X-Men, but like a quirky team of X-Men.
Yeah.
It has vibes that remind me, especially with certain villains, like a certain goldfish who I'll get to later, which reminds me of 90s cartoons.
Oh yeah, I know.
It reminds me of those cartoons, like particularly ones from the 90s, which, funny enough, the soundtrack to this is amazing. The first series has a lot of 90s songs, so there's a connection there. But it reminded me of 90s cartoons, like the really weird ones where you watch it and it's just so random and weird, and you're watching it thinking, what were they on when they made this or wrote this? Like, for example, The Tick and what was the other one that was like it? Sam and Max, Freelance Police, where it just some weird characters, some weird villains. Like in The Tick, there's a villain called Chairface Chippendale. Whole body is a human, but his head's a chair. Like literally a bloody chair. And you're thinking, were they on drugs when they invented this? And it kind of reminded me of this when I saw this goldfish villain, AJ Carmichael, which is one of the best designs of a villain I've ever seen. So I had the biggest grin ever saying, this is like a villain from The Tick come to life. So it has loads of different weird elements like that. And I thought it was bloody brilliant. But anyways, I better watch myself because I'll be going all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's nothing new there, is it, Ethan?
I know, but this show is so great. So anyway, the characters we said about.
Yeah, so I've just brought them up on my phone here. And first one what's come up is number 7, because their adopted father gives the children numbers.
Yeah, he doesn't.
It was only their robotic mother what named them.
Yeah,
and which we only found out halfway through season 1 that she's a robot.
It's random things. It's one of these shows where it's you think you sort of get how it starts off. You think you've got the gist of what's going on. You think, okay, all right, I think I've seen something like this before, but you haven't. You're just not ready for what you see from, like, their butler is a monkey, a talking chimpanzee called Pogo, and as you said, their mother's a robot, and you've got time traveling assassins wearing these sort of teddy bear helmets and masks, which you're like, what on earth is going on? It's one of these shows you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I know. It's brilliant.
And Sharon said, my girlfriend said, it was one of these worries where you think it might get too silly or stupid or over the top, but somehow it works. The way this show works, it just knows what it's doing. It's saying, yeah, it's quirky, it's wacky, and it's quite serious. But it's such a magical, amazing show that works perfectly.
Oh yeah, and the actors in this as well, they're just superb. I mean, like we'll go through I'll go through the characters here, right? So number 7 is Vanya, also known as the White Violin, played by Ellen Page. She's got a big storyline in season 1. Well, let's just say season 1 and season 2. I've got a running theme here, and it's all about the apocalypse.
The
second apocalypse. That's what I mean. So the White Violin, number 7. Then we have Luther, played by Tom Hopper, is number 1. He's known as Space Boy.
Yeah.
And he's super strength, but he's half ape.
He's half monkey, yeah.
He's one big.
And he lives on the moon.
And he lives on the moon for 4 years.
Again, you think that's when you sort of go, oh, this is something I've never seen before.
And then let's have a look. We've got number 2,
who is
Diego, played by David Castaneda.
Yeah.
He is known as the Kraken, and he's sort of like a vigilante.
He sort of reminds me, like I said, this is like a quirky X-Men, and so you could see influences of Wolverine with him a bit.
Yeah,
he's sort of like the Wolverine of the group, isn't he?
But he doesn't listen to anybody's advice.
Yeah, he doesn't listen to anybody, just does his own thing.
And he usually ends up in trouble. Let's have a look. Then we move on to number 3. Is the Rumor, played by
Emmy Ray Lampman.
The Rumor is it's one of my favorite powers is this, the Rumor.
Yeah.
Where she whispers into people's ears, I heard a rumor.
Yeah.
And they go and do whatever she says.
There's the power of persuasion.
Yeah, that is a brilliant, she's and that power as well is in season 1, but in season 2 it's so, shall we say, story defining, that power.
It's story defining, and it sort of evolves a bit more, and her storyline in season 2 is brilliant.
Yeah. And then let's have a look. We've got what's the next one up? It's Ethan's favorite. Number 4, Klaus, played by Robert Sheehan, known as the Seance.
Yeah.
Well, he's a drug alcohol addict, but he can communicate with the dead.
Yep, and he's a very wacky. I think he's the character I can relate to the most. He's just a very wacky character.
So flamboyant, and I'll say he likes the boys.
Yeah, but he's such a wonderful character. And funny enough, my lucky number is 4.
Oh, cool. All right, then let's moving on. We go to number 5, played by Aidan Gallagher.
Literally number 5.
Number 5, but also in the comics, I think he's known as the boy. But number 5, because for some strange reason, the mother never named this one. They only gave number 5. I don't know.
He has the ability to jump through space and time, and
that is the whole point of this. Well, both seasons, really. Mm-hmm. He is the center stone of all the story, really.
Mm-hmm. He's basically the leader of the group.
Yeah.
Originally, as we see when they were kids, number 1, Luther is supposed to be the leader, but obviously when they all grow up to their 30s, they all disband. And eventually they all get back together again. Essentially, number 5 is basically the leader of the group.
Well, yeah, I mean, he gets stuck in. Is it the past or is it the future? I can't remember.
The future.
He gets stuck in the future, and when he returns to the present day, he hasn't aged. Everybody else has grown up, and he's still a 12-year-old boy.
12-year-old boy, but it was something to do when he's time traveled, because he grew up to, like, I think he was aged 58 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
58. So as we see, they all get together for the first time in years because they've all disbanded, and their dad dies. So there's a funeral held. They don't exactly get along, do they? And it's like the quirky family that's got a lot of issues and stuff like that, which is something I really like. I've always been attracted to stories. I think the best stories for me are the ones about a group of friends or a team or family, a group of misfits, but they just happen to be a family and they become a group of heroes. And we've had so many of them. Like I said, X-Men, you sort of get that with the Avengers in the movies anyway. Red Dwarf, the guys in that, they're similar. Ninja Turtles. But I love stories like that where they're these group of misfits, and they're all from different parts of the world or something like that, which they are, and they're just a big family. They just become this family of heroes, and I've always been attracted to those stories the most. And I feel like we've never really got something like that for a while, but this really brings it to like a modern age version of that kind of story.
And then, so the last one of the team is number 6. It's Ben, played by
Ben.
Known as the Horror, but of course he's deceased.
He's deceased.
Can only talk to Klaus.
Yeah,
but he has the power to summon
tentacles, isn't it? It's like octopus tentacles come out of his body.
Tentacles, and and he's always getting on Klaus's nerves because Klaus is the only person who can see him.
Yeah, that's one of the best things in the show about that. And there was one particular scene in season 2 I'll get to later.
So that's the main team. I'll just say you've mentioned Pogo, the talking chimpanzee.
Yeah.
It's so good. So the first season is, let's say, we've said it's the apocalypse again. It's a global apocalypse, and they have to stop fighting between each other because they hate each other most of the time.
Hate each other. They've got a lot of trust issues.
They're trying to find, because they're brought together in season 1 because of the death of their adopted father. Yeah. So they all go back to their own, the family home, and this is where it all starts. Mm-hmm. And then it all becomes clear when Fav returns, the boy, saying about the apocalypse. We've got to stop the apocalypse. It's got something to do, with us. And that's where season 1 sort of kicks off.
Yeah, it kicks off, and it just is a really interesting. It almost starts off like a sort of basic stop the world from the apocalypse story. But then after that, you get some of the most insane things you don't ever expect. And it's bloody well written. It's very intelligent writing in this, actually. But as you said, they all get together and a portal opens up, which is their long lost brother, Five, who during his time in the future has discovered something destroys the world completely.
Yeah.
And he did age to be about 58, so he grew up and all that. But something's obviously, he found a way to get back to that time before the apocalypse. But because of the way he's done it, he's shrunk back into the form of a little boy. But in his mind, he's still 58, and he's pretty deranged, really. He's actually really a deranged.
He's a 12-year-old body, but with a 58-year-old man. And he talks like that. He drinks like that.
He drinks whiskey, gets drunk. His girlfriend is a mannequin, which is brilliant. And he's just such he gets more and more deranged as the series goes on. He's probably I think that'd be my favorite. My big favorite is Klaus. I love him to pieces. But the other one, I do love Five. I think he's the kid who plays him. He's so good at the part. He plays him so well. And as you find out, he during his time in the future or something, he actually joins a sort of a team of assassins, really, time travel assassins, called the Commission. And of course, that's when it starts getting really weird. Like one of the leaders is the Handler.
Oh yes.
What's her name? Kate Walsh.
Yeah.
Brilliant villain, and she's so good at the part.
She's sort of like she's the sort of evil queen of this TV series.
Yeah, she's the evil queen. She is the big bad.
Yeah.
The first 2 seasons in particular, really.
Yeah.
And she's so good. And from what I've heard, she's an original character. She was never in the comic.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
But she's original for the show. And apparently, as you find out, the leader of the Commission is a talking goldfish called Agent Carmichael. And in the comics, he's the big villain. So in a way, the Handler replaces him as the big villain.
Ah, right.
But I think it was due to budgeting thing, because of the design of this character that is so well done, this robot with a talking fish, which I tell you, me and Sharon, as soon as this guy turns around, you see it's a talking fish going, "You have failed me." We were just like, what? But it was great. I had the biggest smile ever when I saw this robot in a little fish talking, going like, "You failed me. I need a smoke." And this robot smokes, and it comes up in little smoky bubbles. And he's going.
I mean, when number 5 in the future is doing work for this company, they send him out to assassinate people. And in a way, it's sort of like to as they claim, correct time. Problems that are trying to change history, they sort of correct it, don't they? So they're behind. Like Sapphire and Steel.
Yeah, sort of like that, ain't it? They're behind certain crimes in history. So they say, "Oh, you've heard of this? We're behind that. You've heard of that? We did that." So it's quite interesting when it's like the assassination of Kennedy. Apparently, from what they say, they're behind that in a way.
Yeah.
Sort of learn about that. But yeah.
As you say, once he comes back, there's these assassins turn up in the first season, as you said, teddy bears and
they have these helmets or masks that look like teddy bears. And I remember my brother telling me about this, and I was like, teddy bear killers, what? But of course you see what it is. And what are their names? Hazel, who's I love this character, Hazel, by the way. What a great character, Hazel. The one who ends up with the donut lady, which I'll get to in a minute. And Cha-Cha, who's the psycho African-American woman.
Well, and that's played by Mary J. Blige.
Yes. She,
I think
wow,
she did a really good job in this.
She was great, and when I saw her, it was
by the end of season 1, she was so demented and determined to get her own way.
And these two, the thing I love about this show is, and as Sharon said, she said we don't have a particular favorite. She doesn't have a particular favorite. She loves the whole team of the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
But you get invested in all the characters, and be it the small side ones, you get to know them so well. Like everybody in this they've all got a big story. You don't have like some shows where it's just like this little story that probably you don't need, or just a small side story. Every story is big.
But also as well, like The Boys, this series is not afraid, not the main cast, but not afraid to kill off, the what do you call supporting casts.
Yeah, just certain supporting characters and stuff like that.
You get to like these characters, and then next minute they're gone.
Well, yeah, that's for example, one of my favorites, and I thought he was such a lovely, wonderful character, was Hazel, who's sort of like the muscle of these two assassins. Cha-Cha's psycho, sort of brains of the operation.
He's
the brawn. He's like this sort of big guy eating donuts, and he's sort of, you almost think he's a bit slow, and he's just like, yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, but he changes his attitude, doesn't he? He falls in love.
That was one of the best stories in it for me. Yeah, he falls in love, and with this donut lady,
and he'll do anything for her.
Yeah, and it was brilliant. I tell you, that was one of my favorite storylines in that, because something we don't really get in a lot of TV shows was she's clearly quite a bit older than him.
Yeah.
And I think the guy who plays Hazel's the same age as me, or just a couple years older than me. And this woman's obviously, I don't know, 20 years older than him, which my girlfriend is the same. She's 20 years older than me. So watching this was really refreshing. I actually thought quite realistic. And I actually thought, this is really nice to see age doesn't matter. And it was such a lovely romantic story. So it was something I could really relate to. And he saves her. He gives up his membership as these evil assassins to spend his life with her. And as it ends with season 1, they teleport to an unknown time somewhere to get away from the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And Hazel comes back, now 20 years older. And it was great because they say to him, where's Agnes? That was her name, Agnes. Where's Agnes? And he says how she passed away, but they spent 20 years together. And it was something really satisfying to me. But then
they go and kill him.
He gets killed by these 3 other great characters, the Swedish Brothers.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. You get to like these characters.
I couldn't believe that he got killed. I was like, no. I was heartbroken when that happened. I was like, no, not him.
No, I mean, also as well in season 1, there is another love story, which is Klaus and I forgot the character's name.
David,
the Vietnam soldier.
Is it David?
Is it David? I can't. It might be. I can't. It might be. But yes, because somehow he gets back in time to Vietnam, doesn't he? And he's in the war, and he falls in love with the soldier.
Yeah, that was another great storyline.
Yeah,
I loved because I think he's sort of bi, isn't he? Because he sort of hits on women. Like there was a bit in the bus before he time jumps to the past. He's in that bus, isn't he? And there's that woman, and he sort of winks at her like, "Hiya." And you think, where's he gone? And he's in the bloody Vietnam War.
Yeah,
and that was a great storyline. And he meets that guy. I'm sure it's David. I'm sure it's
the characters' names. Bear with me. Keep going, Ethan. I'll find it.
I'm sure it's I'm sure it began with a D or something.
Agnes D. Oh dear, I can't find it. No, I think it might be David. Actually, it rings a bell. David. Let's call him David for now, anyway.
Yeah.
There's that many
Dave.
Dave.
Yeah, it is Dave. So it's Dave.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a great storyline and such a heartbreaking one. And like you said, it introduces time travel, which I think does a great job of it. And I think it's the best iteration of time traveling that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think it's written so well. But yeah, poor Klaus, while they're being chased by these assassins to try and also save the world, Klaus then gets accidentally sent back to the Vietnam War for, I think it was a year, until he finally uses the suitcase to get back to the present.
As we said, remember, we haven't mentioned the suitcases, have we?
Yeah, apparently the commission used how they travel through time is a bloody suitcase.
It
could have been anything, but they say no, it's a suitcase, a briefcase, and you're like, what?
It's a time traveling suitcase. You just put settings in and off you go.
Yeah.
I mean, season 1 was brilliantly done. I mean, we found out most near the end that the apocalypse is caused by
Vanya,
the white violin.
And
against her, because she can't control her powers.
No, she's the most powerful of the group.
Right, yes.
And hers are so destructive, which it's sort of a mixture of telekinesis and vibration control, isn't it, in a way? But it's like a mixture of all this power, which could just annihilate Miles. And in her case, it could destroy the world. And that's a great story because one of the nastiest villains I've ever seen in a TV show, and a great villain. The villain of this season is a guy called Leonard, which he's from the start. Now, from what I've heard, this guy is from the comics, but in the comic version, he's an actual supervillain called the Conductor. There's like a costume, a very vampire-like costume, meets Maestro Psycho. So but they've obviously toned him down to a bit more realistic citizen guy. And as it turns out, he's sort of a student of Vanya, wanting to learn violin, and they hit it off. They like each other. But as it transpires, he's out to get the Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah.
As it turns out, he's a serial killer. Who's not really called Leonard. I don't know I can't remember what his real name was, but apparently Leonard's a fake name. And it turns out, which was quite a good story. We kind of seen these stories with villains before, but it does it well. Where he was born on the same year as the 43 children.
Yeah,
but he's not one of them. He's not one of them. He's just someone who's a fan of them.
All I've got down here is Leonard Peabody. There's no character. That's all he's going by.
Yeah, Leonard Peabody. That's his name. And he wanted to join them. And he had like an abusive dad. And even as a kid, he turned into a killer. And he was in an asylum or something like for years. And he comes out and he's coming after them.
Yeah. So brilliant. But I mean, with the white violin, one of the shocking things for me was watching this was when she cuts the rumor's throat.
Yeah, Alison's throat. That stunned me and Sharon.
Because we couldn't use the power.
Yeah, because he can't speak for a while anyway. But we thought she was dead, and it just ends it on that episode. We thought she had literally killed her. It delivers all the shocks and surprises, and just things you don't expect.
Yeah, the shock and the surprise of season 1 is the fail. The world is destroyed.
Yeah, it's not your goody two shoes bog standard. They could save it. They do. Yeah. They fail, but as it transpires, they all finally get together and realize it's Vanya, and they sort of piece it all together. And number 5 works it out that they have to change history, and they fail. They blow up the bloody moon, and the moon comes crashing down.
Yeah. And as at the ending of season 1 is they're last minute the jump in time.
Apparently, which was something quite interesting when he said, no matter where we go, there's always an apocalypse. So apparently the apocalypse somehow follows them because of Vanya being alive.
Yeah.
They change history because Vanya is the apocalypse and it follows them. So it was a bit, oh, okay. And as they do, they travel back in time to sort of work out how they can reset everything, how they could stop all this.
Yeah, so this is where season 2 picks up, isn't it? Where they're being shot through time.
Yeah.
And they all land in the same decade, but different years.
Because he says, oh, number 5 says, doesn't he? I think I could get us all into the past. Like we could all time travel. You sure you've got this? I've never tried it, but I'm sure it can work. And he buggers it up, don't he? They all like
every one of them ends up in a different year.
Yeah.
But it's in the 1960s. So we've got rid of the present day. In second season is set in the 1960s. Which was brilliantly done.
This one, season 1 was brilliant, and I think while it has some good fast moments, it sort of like in a way introduces it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a bit slower, isn't it? But it's still interesting. Season 2 was much faster and more colourful and.
I mean, eventually they do all meet up together in one certain year, but they have been living their own lives.
They all live their own lives through the 60s.
I mean, the rumor gets married. Yeah, she gets married, and in the 60s as well, because it was the race troubles.
Yeah, with and I'll tell you, that actually did remind me of an episode of Quantum Leap where it does deal with that. And I tell you, that was such a well done story. I tell you, the 60s, Dallas, the look of it, the music, and again, like series 1, the soundtrack's got a bit of 80s, a lot of 90s music, which was perfect. And then it changes it up, doesn't it, with a little bit of 90s, but a lot of the 60s music.
Yeah.
And it just depicts that whole world perfectly and the time and all the events that happened.
Yeah. And also, shall we, as you've just mentioned it there, they all are sent back to the 1960s to Dallas. And of all the places to go in Dallas, of course, one year, of course, is the assassination of Kennedy, which most of this season revolves around.
Yeah, which, as we sort of got a little hint of in series 1, is connected to number 5.
Yeah.
But now, because of the apocalypse being connected to Vanya, it's now going to be involving her, and it's just all a mishmash, isn't it? Like number 5, assassination of Kennedy.
Vanya, when she gets in the 60s, has lost total memory. She can't remember anything.
Yeah.
The rumor, Alison, she gets married to a guy, settles down, has her own life. What's his name? Number 1, Space Boy.
Yeah, Luther. He
gets a
job as a
bodyguard job and a
bodyguard job and a bit of a fighter, like a boxer.
Yeah, but he gets a bodyguard job for Jack Ruby.
Yeah. You think, how did that happen?
How did that happen? Klaus somehow becomes a guru and opens up his own
cult. Even though he keeps saying it's not a cult, it's a special group of love, which is essentially hippies, but they say no, it's a bloody cult he's created.
Also, as well, he sees the man he fell in love with in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he tries to stop him going to war, which is that is a good part of this storyline.
Season 2 tugged a lot of heartstrings for me, and this was one of them, which really made me heartbroken for this, or tugged my emotions. You like I said, you get invested, and you want these guys to succeed and stuff. And in a way, when you're watching this, you want him to save Dave and do something about it so he doesn't die. But at the same time, you think he can't, because that would mess up the timeline or something. It shows how timelines could just flip like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's such a heartbreaking story, and how he talks to him. But
Yeah.
you know, Dave sort of, he's thinking there is something about you, even though I've not met you yet.
Well, this is it. I mean, the second season does touch on a lot of things. You said the race, the sexuality, because that was frowned upon as well.
Yeah,
It's getting the message across, which is a brilliant thing. And I'm trying to think.
it's very hard hitting as well, which I
Yeah,
quite like. Like
it
you
is,
said, the race thing was brilliant. As we see, the rumor, Alison marries this fantastic, lovely black guy, and it is during the time when all the race problems, racism was a massive, horrible thing back then, and it depicts it big time perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's gut wrenching, but it's the truth. That's what I love about the show. It's a superhero show, comic book, but it's a very realistic, believable thing, and it, you know, shows the truth. And as you see, it shows their rise to sort of overcome, you know, racism and being shoved to the side and all this, and being picked on. And it's, you know, such a great story. And some of the people you see, like certain ones where the rumor starts using her powers on, they sort of deserve it, but then it gets a bit too much with her power usage. But it's a great story.
Yeah, once her husband sees her whisper something into that policeman's ear, he loses all trust in her and thinks she's sided with the police, and that's the breakdown of the sort of marriage. But
yeah,
it's
they sort of get back. Luckily, she gets on track. And one bit which I really loved is when she confesses, "I'm from the future." He's like, "What? So he tells her the whole story, and he then says, "There's one bit I love where it's like, there's a president that's black." Yeah, and then she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "There's really a president that's black?" And she says, "It does get better." But then there was one bit where she says, "The problems still exist," and he says, I thought you said it gets better." Half of it, yes, half of it doesn't. It's always going to be in existence. And sadly, it is.
I mean, that is a funny part as well in the story, when the family members are all sort of turning up to her husband. Well, I'm Alison's brother, a white guy. And then another one says, "Yeah, I'm a brother. Oh, I'm a sister." And then, how many family members have you got? I don't know.
And it's thinking like, why is he white?
Yeah, why is he white?
Why is he white? You with this hippie with long hair,
Yeah.
or something. And then like someone claiming to be your brother, the biggest white boy I've ever seen, which is obviously Luther.
We haven't mentioned Diego as well. Diego ends up in a mental asylum. Where he meets a certain young lady of dubious.
Oh yeah, another great little character.
Yeah,
this young woman who's supposedly a mental patient like him, but as it transpires, she's an undercover agent from the commission and the adopted daughter of the handler.
Yeah.
And then another reveal is she's one of the kids, one of the 43 children.
Yeah.
Which you think, how many surprises are we going to bloody get?
Well, I think there's more to come in season 3 when eventually we do get it. But it's season 2. I really did enjoy season 1, but season 2 up to gear.
Season 2, really went full throttle, and I think it's like, this is what you're going to get. It's all like season 1's the introduction, but this season 2 is like the real deal.
Yeah, I was a bit dubious to begin before I started watching season 2. Oh, it's going to be set in the 60s. Oh, you know. I thought, oh. But then, as you say, with the race storylines, with the sexual storyline, the mental illness storyline. I mean, there was quite a few. Oh, and also the Vanya as well. Ended up on a farm, falling in love with the woman.
Yeah, on the woman. So, and again, that was a really good depiction as well. It's like, it's not forced on or like fantasy, like really fantasized, because sometimes you could watch something and it's a bit over the top and you're a bit gratuitous. But it was like nicely portrayed realistically. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. seeing this really well done story.
And then we get to learn more this season about their adopted father, the monocle.
Yeah.
I was not expecting what came in this season with the.
Yeah, this is when I said anything can bloody happen in this show. And it's this show where you think, what's going to come up? And I'll tell you, we didn't expect the fact, as they find out, the dad's there, and you sort of learn about more about their dad.
Well, they seem to think they've sort of worked out in their head that their dad is arranging the assassination of Kennedy.
Yeah. But it turns out this group that their dad is with wants that, but he didn't want it. Yeah. And it turns out their dad is a good guy. He is actually he's quite a good guy. But as we learned in season 1, we knew there was something about him, because there was one episode where you sort of think, how long has he lived for? It shows he's lived for years. So you think, does he have powers? Is he a super being like them? And you think, where did he come from? And then, as it transpires, you see where Pogo came from, how he got his intelligence and stuff that.
Yeah. And it was good to see Pogo back again in this and all,
Yeah.
A brief moment.
A brief moment where you see Pogo's origins and how
that was so well done. Shooting the monkey into space and.
Yeah, that sort of, because they did that back then. They sent it into space, so you get to learn it's Pogo.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you see the other origin about their mother, who's this American woman that Reginald was in a relationship at the time. So you sort of think, did she? But of course, they sort of changed the timeline, which we'll get later, because you sort of think, did she end up dying and he turned her into a robot, or did he create a robot in her image? So you don't get all these stories, but again, as you said,
and as I said, the big reveal of the father is
he's a bloody alien.
I was just out of this world. It was.
Honestly, I think me and Sharon's jaws just dropped. We couldn't believe what we were looking at. We were speechless as soon as because I was thinking, what's he doing? And then he just takes it off, and I'm like, he's a bloody alien. So now we've got aliens involved in this. And it's bloody brilliant. And of course, he kills them all, doesn't he? The group that organized the death of Kennedy, he slaughters a lot of them.
I mean, I don't know if that happened in the comic book. I don't know, because I'm not. I admit now, these days in my time of life, I don't read a lot of comics. Back in the day, I used to. In my younger days, I used to. But so this series comes fresh to me.
Same here.
But as I say, I don't know. I don't know if that happened in the comic book or not, but it was such a great reveal.
Yeah, that was brilliant. There were so many moments in this season where, like I said, the alien, and of course the whole handler becoming the leader of the commission,
after eating
AJ Carmichael.
Yes,
which I wish we got more of him, though. That's the character. I wish we got a bigger part for him, because that was such a cool character.
Yeah,
cool villain. Yeah. But of course, I can imagine. I can understand the budgeting. I mean, I don't know how much it must have cost to get this kind of villain to life. But yeah, and of course we see the handler becomes the leader of the commission, and I'll tell you that. She just becomes a full-on evil psycho villain and is coming after them. And it results in, of course, one of the best final showdowns I've ever witnessed on a TV show, where she gets an whole army of assassins that just appear.
Yeah.
And it's just turns into this big battlefield, which was so cool.
It was. But going back, there was another funny moment as well, which involves Klaus, was when he lets Ben
Oh yes, this was one of my favourite moments where Ben possesses him.
lets Ben possess his body, and
Yeah.
then refuses to come out with the body.
Yeah, refuses to come out. I mean, that was probably the best, one of the best moments ever for me. If I could pick a moment, it's probably this one. But he does, and I loved how Klaus, all these people, obviously, because they're from the 60s, they're not going to know what he's on about when he comes out with these great sayings. They think, oh, it's words of wisdom. It's not. It's bloody lines from songs that he knows. And that was brilliant. And the best one is at that point where Ben's trying to keep his body. And I burst into laughter because it's one of my favorite songs, actually, when they said, any last words of wisdom? Oh my God, we're back again. Brothers, sisters, everybody sing. We're going to show you the flavor. We're going to show you how. And I thought, he's quite bloody Backstreet Boys. And then, of course, Backstreet Boys plays.
Yeah. This is what I mean. I don't know how you how would you class this series? It's comedy, it's fantasy, it's science fiction, it's
everything.
Yeah.
It's literally everything I could ever want in a show.
You just can't put one label on this.
No. I'd love to see it on Wikipedia. Like they usually, when you look up a show, they'll say genre. It's probably a big long list of genres that they've just combined.
And as I say, we by the end of season 2, the apocalypse is
averted.
They all jump back present time.
And I wasn't expecting this, but that was brilliant. And it's again using classic things that we've seen before in other TV shows. Yeah. And like you said, they avert it because Vanya gets full control and stops the apocalypse. Well, it's actually Ben who stops the apocalypse, really. Yeah. Which I'll get to favorite moments bit, but
and then you say they go back, and so there's the father,
the present day.
Yeah, there's the father sat in his house, the big mansion. He doesn't recognize them.
Well, he does actually, because I remember he says he remembers them from the 60s because he's sitting there and he says to them, "I knew you'd show up eventually." And then they say, "Oh, Dad, I'm not your dad." But
yeah, that's something. That's it. Then
he says, they say, "This is our home." No, it isn't.
No.
And then they're like, "No, we're the Umbrella Academy. This is the home of the Umbrella Academy." And he says, "No, this is the home of the Sparrow Academy." Yeah. And then they eventually turn around, and it's basically an evil version of them.
Like and Ben's alive.
Ben's in this timeline. Ben survived, but is now the classic sort of evil, dark version, isn't he? Because he's got the goatee, the emo hairstyle, and the scar, and he says, "Who are these assholes?"
I love the closing line of this series. All of them would say,
"Oh shit." It was brilliant. And it's again, like I said, it's the now that's assumingly the villains of this next season is this sort of doppelganger alternate
the mirror universe
of them. And again, this was a thing. One of the members is a floating, from what I've heard, is a floating talking green cube.
Oh, nice.
If you watch the clip again, there is a little cube that comes floating along like.
Oh, well, I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, and apparently, because from what I've heard, one of the members is that green cube. And I've just heard it from my brother, and I watched it again. I was like, there's a bloody floating green cube that joins them. And I'm thinking, what else is going to bloody pop up? But it's a doppelganger. But the question is, since they've now buggered up the timeline or something's happened, they've averted it, but obviously things have now changed. Is the Sparrow Academy other children, like children that were never chosen?
Of the 43.
Out of the 43. So could we be seeing more of the 43 children that existed with powers?
Oh, I hope so. We could,
so
yeah.
Could it be he obviously their dad, because I'm assuming this is what I was saying about the mother. Diego tells their mother about Reginald, but obviously they don't know that Reginald's trying to be a good guy, and she leaves him. So that could be what sets off the problem, this problematic timeline, where he's angry at them that his wife walked out. So we probably never get the mother being a robot or something, but now he's worked out who these kids are. So he's thought, right, I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to put these other kids that never got a chance, and I'll turn them to Sparrow Academy so I could kill them.
Oh, come on, what season 3? Come on, when is it happening?
I know. But I'll tell you, it just delivered so many scenes. I'm a bit worried now because I was so used to Ben being such a lovely person, and I've never cried so much on a TV show. And because even Sharon was like, "Whoa!" And I tell you, that was one of the most emotional things I've ever watched. Actually, was when he goes into the mind of Vanya and shows that he's always been there, and he's using all his power, and he's basically moving on to heaven. You know, he's blue light, and it just, I cried as soon as he said, "Can you do me one favor? Anything? Can you hug me while I go? It's been so long." I burst into tears at that. I was in tears. I was just like mouth over my hand, and even Sharon was crying. And it was so heartbreaking. But when a show does that, when it invests in you like that, it's got something special. And
if it pulls on your emotions, then it's working.
But what a lovely, fantastic character he was, Ben, and just that ending for him. But my God, when he said that, I burst into tears. It was so emotional and heartbreaking. Yeah. And then, of course, now we've got a doppelganger version of him. So now I'm worried, like, oh God, now we've got an evil version of him with a goatee.
Yeah, but don't worry, because most probably by the end of season 3, they'll put everything back to normal again, and then they'll jump onto another thing.
And of course, as we see, so I'm quite interested where they're going to go next, because they obviously it's by the seams of it. I think we are now, the Apocalypse saga is done. So I'm assuming we're now going to get the saga of like, who's their dad? You know, where does he come from? We obviously know he's an alien.
They need to answer all that,
and we're going to find out maybe how did this happen with the children? Why is it there's 43 women who got impregnated with these magical superpowered kids?
Yeah,
I think we're going to find out more about the other existing kids, but how did this all happen?
Yeah. Well, I don't think they can carry on doing another season for the Apocalypse.
No, they've clearly finished that off, and they've wrapped it up perfectly. And it's got a lot of things that it ended with, like I mentioned 3 characters that were great villains that reminded me of something like typical villains. They're quite cartoony, but they were great. The Swedish Brothers.
Oh yes, we haven't touched on those, have we? The Swedish Brothers.
Yeah, the Swedish Brothers. They were like the classic, and all of them have white hair, and they don't speak, but eventually they do speak. But they were great villains, and you've seen villains like
very weird.
Yeah, they were the classic. Again, they reminded me of villains from like 90s cartoons or something. These weird villains, and quite cartoony, but they worked. They were.
I mean, there was one scene where there was in their apartment, and they were stood in their underwear and vests.
Yeah,
and they had a knife,
cooking fish, and like practicing knife throwing or something.
Just between the legs, and
yeah.
I think
and it hits their leg, and one of them just goes,
yeah.
like bloody Lurch or something from the Addams Family.
Yeah. After I totally forgot about the Swedish Brothers. Yeah,
and of course 2 of them died. One of them.
I said strange and weird characters.
Yeah, they were, and 2 of them obviously get killed because they're assassins for the commission. But one of them turns into a good guy, doesn't he? He helps them out and kills the handler, and he actually just says enough, and goes off. So and he lives his life in the 60s. So could we see him? Could we see him in the next series, but an old man?
You never know in this mirror universe.
And as we learn, Vanya and the woman of the farm, which is her love interest, the woman she falls in love with, her daughter, her son, becomes connected with Vanya and ends up with similar powers. But as you see at the end, he's got the powers of telekinesis, and he still has them. So where's this going to go? This clearly is going to be touched on in the next season. So we could see that boy all grown up, but with powers.
Yeah. It's just, I can't wait. I want season 3 now.
I know, so do I. It's just such a great show, and I love how they evolve from the Umbrella Academy, finally become this wonderful, loving family, and they finally get rid of all their problems and stuff.
They were so dysfunctional to begin with.
Yeah, they get rid of all the dysfunctional problems, but they love each other at the end. And in a way, they end up looking like a superhero group, don't they? It was very reminiscent of the X-Men movies where they had the black outfits, and they all get these cool black outfits. And I've got to say, I loved it where they all get ready to go, don't they? And they have the black outfits. They look amazing, so sleek and cool, superhero-like. And then Klaus just goes, wait. And he completes his new look with a cowboy hat. This cool look with a long black coat and a cowboy hat. And it was such a cool look. And they're all...
Next one as well, number 5 is always wearing his school uniform.
I love, he's always got the school uniform. And they all just go, I think Diego says when he gets the cowboy hat, Diego says to him, $50 to leave him behind. And I'm like, no, we'll take him.
I think we've gone through season 1 and 2. Have we gone through every favourite moments? I think. Or have we got any?
Oh, there was one, actually, I think one of the best moments for me in season 1, actually, and this is going with the soundtrack, which really took me back to the 90s. There's so many moments, but this is probably, if it's not the best, it's one of the best for me in season 1, was one of the things I want to see is Luther and Allison finally get together, because obviously they're not blood related, so they could still get a relationship.
You can tell Luther's got something for her.
Yeah, Luther's in love with Allison, and Allison does for him as well. But one of the best bits for season 1 was when they dance together, and it becomes sort of like a dreamlike thing, and Luther's got his old body back. But it plays one of the best songs I've ever loved from the 90s, which is Top Loader's Dancing in the Moonlight.
Yeah.
And they do this great dance. That was a fantastic scene. I had the biggest smile ever. And that was such a wonderful scene. And there was a bit with Klaus, which I liked, where he's trying to get Luther out of the nightclub, who's dosed up on drink and drugs. And of course, he's finally going, I've got to refuse it. And he gets knocked out. And he essentially ends up in the world of the dead. And it's all black and white. And the only thing that's colored is his top. And he's playing this beautiful sort of French music, like that sort of music you hear in France. And he sees that little girl. And he's like, oh, could you tell me where you are? Where I am? And the girl's like, on this bike, she's like, I don't like you. I don't like you. I was in fits of laughter because I'm thinking, what?
It's so imaginative, this series. It really is.
I know. It's fair play to Gerard Way for coming up with this comic book. And if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have got this great show, because I think he's helped out as well on the show. But they're obviously borrowing, from what I'm hearing, they've borrowed elements from the comic, but it's not exact. They're obviously doing their own thing while adapting, as they do with any.
Well, I think most of it, they do that. I mean, the boys do that as well, don't they? So they just change a little bit quickly then. Yeah.
But from what I'm seeing, this just delivered everything, and there's so many favorite moments I could say, but I think we've said quite a lot of them.
I think we've gone through most of them.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else to say about it, but it's such an enjoyable series to watch. And if anybody out there who's got to the end of this with us, please, I would suggest go and sit down and watch the 2 series. because what I ended up doing first season last year was sitting watching the first episode, and before I knew it, I'd gone through all of them. It's one of those binge watching series.
Yeah. Well,
So
me and Sharon ended up binge watching it. We watched it till like about 3 or 4 in the morning.
I'm not that bad. So, well, I think we've come to the end of this, talking about the Umbrella Academy. The only thing to do is rate it, I think.
Yeah.
And give your final thoughts. So, Ethan, over to you.
Oh, it's 10 out for both seasons, for this whole series. And I don't know what's to come, but I'm really looking forward to it. But so far, I think it'll deliver fully, completely from start to finish. It's 10 umbrellas out of 10 umbrellas. This show is it's the best show I've ever seen. And I've seen so many shows over the years, and I could easily say certain ones are my favorites, but this one is my favorite show. It's the best I've ever watched. It delivers everything.
Well, I agree. It's so imaginative. It draws you in. The storytelling is brilliant. The acting is brilliant. So I think, and now this is going to be a reference to season 2 if anybody's seen it, I'm going to go for 10 tins of pink paint out of 10. Who would go into a shop and just buy pink paint? I don't know.
I know, yeah.
Only clouds.
Good choice, actually. Good choice.
But Ethan, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking the Umbrella Academy with you. It's because it's good to keep on top of watching what's on the TV. I know our group mainly talks movies these days, but it's nice to jump back on the TV and watch some TV stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll do some more TV hopefully in the near future. So you guys out there, if you liked our review of the Umbrella Academy, please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of the series. Let us know what you would like us to review in the future. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. And YouTube, if you want notification of our videos going up, press the bell button. Go on, ding it then. Yeah, get a little ding every time a video goes up. So, yeah, that's the only funny ways we're as these days. Because Ethan now is bedbound. He's getting on a bit. Yes, there we go. He's plastered it once again. So until next time, guys, stay safe. We'll see you next time. Bye now. Bye-bye.
See you later, guys.